Welcome to Sodexo's Expert Series, where we interview specialists from across the health and care sector talking about the challenges and solutions that are faced on a daily basis. I'm delighted today to welcome a very special guest. Nutrition and food is a core part of Sodexo's heritage and our offering today. Therefore, to have Phil Shelley with us today to talk about the new national food standards is really, really important. Phil, welcome. Phil used to be chair of the National Catering Association and is chair of the recent food review. We're delighted to have him with us. Phil, I wonder if we can start off, please, just by explaining to us a little bit about the reason for the food review and the importance of the national food standards.
Yeah, thanks for the welcome, Simon. We've all been waiting for that big opportunity to make a difference, and there have been a number of standards before, and people often say to me, well, what's the difference in these standards and others? And I think there were lots of positives that we had from other standards and other reviews. This time around, a really sad occasion where we lost 7 patients through listeria. That current Secretary of State then felt this was a great chance to make a difference and look at the wider aspects of how the NHS is serving healthcare catering. So looking at food safety, looking at nutrition, and trying to bring services together. In essence, we all want to improve the patient recovery. So lots of opportunities and lots of conversations we knew would take place.
Tell me, does the food review and the new standards, they cover both the way food is delivered as well as the quality of the food?
Yeah, very much so. We've been fortunate on the timing that the standards followed the review. There was quite a bit of work already happening with the standards. They were put on hold when the review was launched in 2020. We had the chance to kind of take the recommendations from the review and kind of load them into the food standards. Of course, there's been the pandemic, there's been other challenges around, but I think generally we're really pleased with how the standards look.
Phil, one of the recommendations in the report is to have more board level representation. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what they're responsible for and accountable for?
I think it's really important when you look at food safety, when you look at the nutritional side of food and how we can push things forward. You need somebody at board level that is willing to have food and drink on the agenda all of the time. It may not mean there's something every month, or every fortnight, but it's on the agenda and somebody's asking the right question. We know that these standards for the first time are mandated. So trusts have kind of got 6 months to really get themselves into gear, and then those questions will be coming when we do the external visits. We'll be going through a pro forma to see, well, where are you? Where can we support you? How can we analyse the gaps, that are there? So it's important for us to have a board representative, somebody senior enough to make a difference.
And how are you measuring the success of the work that you're championing?
The conversations we now have with people like yourselves at Sodexo, other FM providers and our in-house trusts, the communication channels are so open. I'm really pleased that everybody has opened the door and willing to discuss very openly about where they are. What we need to do is once these standards are out, which was in November, there's going to be some data collections and we will start to see a picture of where people are. And then obviously year on year, we will start to engage and see where the progress is and where it isn't and challenge trusts.
What I really like, Phil, about the review is how it doesn't just tackle patient food, but also, importantly, the nutrition for frontline teams. And that's important for Sodexo, as we have our own people on the front line as well.
We are the NHS. We are supposed to be caring for people. And I think through the pandemic, we didn't look after our teams in the right way. And it took time to realise that through the pandemic, we shut down services. Okay, on a safety manner, it was the right thing to do. But actually, where were our staff going to go to eat and to rest and to support each other? So I think the standards, particularly around the 24/7 catering, means that whether you're working 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., you should have something available that supports not just your nutrition and choice, but about your well-being. We need to look after our teams, and they will give back even more so now in such challenging times.
We all know the pressures that the senior leadership teams face in particularly hospitals, acute settings every day, and the juggling of priorities that they have. What challenges do you foresee in terms of providers being able to implement some of the recommendations in the report?
We need consistency, and Where the FM providers are really strong is around a couple of the standards of like the dietetic support. You know, you're really well set around having an FM dietitian and also around food safety. So that's a really strong area for FM providers. What we need to see is the advancement together. You know, what we don't want to see is some trust, some providers running at 100 miles an hour and some really struggling. So I suppose for me, my role is to try and keep everybody together, not having, you know, loose horses going off, but actually learning from each other, not being frightened to be transparent and saying, well, these are the parts of the standards that we're really struggling, but these are the parts that we've learned really quickly and hopefully are putting us in a great position.
And who do you tend to engage with within a trust? Is it the medical director? Is it the chief nurse? Is it dietitians? Chief execs? Who leads the ownership of food within trust typically?
That's a great question because every site is different. It's often the person with that real energy on the topic. Right. Generally, the chief nurse is a real driver. And of course, if you've got a great catering facilities lead on the topic of food, fantastic. The dietitian is so important, particularly now where we want menus to be more flexible, more adaptable. You know, and I was looking at the work that Sodexo's doing around the flexible eating. I mean, we need to understand that if you're more adaptable about your timings and around food choice, then people will eat better and recover quicker.
I mean, some of the results of that trial have been quite incredible. We saw that 78% of patients completed and finished their meals when you gave them the choice of when they wanted to eat, rather than 25% when you went through a regimented mealtime.
How can you ignore that? And we're doing some work, particularly around paediatrics at the moment. Children now, when they come into ward level, they don't want to be institutionalised. They don't want to eat at 7:30, 12 and 5. They want to eat when they're ready to eat, and the choice needs to be appropriate. In the same way, can the parents eat with them? So that style of service, we're very much looking at how can we bring that into a children's ward setting to have it a more relaxed environment.
What do you see as a potential phase 2 or phase 3 of the food standard? What are kind of timescales for that?
Certainly around October time, we will start to see some data evidence. That's the first thing. That will probably be the line in the sand, particularly on things like food waste. You and I have spoken about food waste many a time and how important it is for everybody within healthcare, you know, whether you are the nurse, the housekeeper, the host, the caterer. Food waste is something that everybody should have a responsibility for. What a fantastic opportunity to actually put money back into services if you can start to manage and reduce food waste. So I think October time we'll start to understand where people are, and then around April, March 2024, we'll then see the next sort of step of where people are going, particularly around the 24/7, the food waste and the leadership, food and drink strategy side. It'll be ongoing, and you know, this will never stop. You know, we have a 3-year programme within NHS England, but we want things to keep moving at the best pace as possible.
Developing that bit further, net zero, you know, all hospitals now have their own green plans and ambitions. How can the food review, the food standards support and drive some of those net zero ambitions? And does technology play a part in that?
We are very much pushing electronic meal ordering, but in the right way. We don't want it to be a replacement of communication. It needs to enhance the communication and the auditing of meals that are provided, the temperature and the food waste management. You've also got menu planning, you know, very much thinking about choice, but also around the carbon. And we're creating a recipe and menu bank. So all of the NHS, you know, whether you're in-house or you're a provider, will be able to step onto that platform and take dishes off of that. It's already been nutritionally analysed, including the carbon data. There's lots of areas that we're talking about, but those are the first 2 areas that we're moving on.
And if you had one message for providers, for self-operating providers, but also organisations like Sodexo, what is the main thing we can do really to help you to achieve the key elements of the food standards?
For me, I really want you to be ambitious, you know, never hold back on being innovative, being brave, encouraging your teams to step out of that comfort zone, break the culture that we have in some areas where it's not my job. You know, we're in this together. We've seen the challenges day in, day out with the NHS. The only way we're going to succeed is that teams work closely together and push each other in a positive way. Have conversations, be open with us, and we want everybody to be around the table. It's so important that we understand each other's challenges and hopefully we can move forward together.
Phil, thank you so much for your time today. It's been invaluable to talk to you. As I mentioned before, it's really close to the heart of Sodexo, but I also think it's incumbent on, as you said, organisations like Sodexo to keep driving the innovation, keep driving the boundaries and working with our key partners to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Simon. It's a privilege.